Okay, I think we are ready to get started. Good evening again. Thank you for joining us for this. We are focused on a very important conversation, closing the gender gap to realize the AFCFTA potential. Focus on women, the youth, and entrepreneurship in Africa. I am delighted to moderate this session, and we're going to get right into it. As you know, there is a panel conversation, and I will just bring up my panelists and we'll get started. Of course, as usual, we'd like to keep this interactive, so we expect to hear your thoughts as you chime in and we discuss these issues together. So without further ado, I'd like to now invite our panelists, starting with Mrs. Aissatou Diallo. She's the Senior Coordinator, Regional Integration for the AFCFTA and LDCs at the International Trade Center. Please put your hands together for her as she steps forward. We also have Ms. Claire Maduka, Business Process Architect at Sobeys, all the way from Canada. Thank you so much. Please a round of applause for her. We have Ms. Oluroti Dorothy, Director, Export Development at the Afreximbank, also joining this. And we have Mr. Sharif Lokman, Sub-Governor, Financial Inclusion Sector at the Central Bank of Egypt. All right, we do have some speakers missing, but we're going to start, and peradventure they join us as we continue. We'll bring them on stage. So let's get started. All right. So, inclusion is a big word. Very important in the context of Africa. But beyond that, we also know that there is so much inequality in the treatment of some people, especially women. And then, of course, we have this huge potential of our youth and the entrepreneurial drive of Africa. So we're trying to situate the African Common Free Trade Area discussion in the context of these very important themes. And again, I welcome my panelists to give some perspective on these issues. So I'll start perhaps with Aissatou. Maybe you can give us some context in terms of how the International Trade Center sees this conversation around the youth, around SMEs, and so forth. Can you tell us why, in your view, MSMEs, women, and youth are very important as we try to drive this inclusion on the African continent?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm having some problem with my voice, but I will do my best. So first, please allow me to thank Afreximbank and also the Central Bank of Egypt for having invited the International Trade Center, ITC, to join this panel this afternoon. As you may know, the International Trade Center, ITC, is a joint technical cooperation agency of the United Nations and the World Trade Organization, and our mandate is to support micro, small, and medium-sized companies as well as women and youth entrepreneurs to access market opportunities. So for us, the African Continental Free Trade Area is the most important, achievement of the African Union since its creation, and we have to help MSMEs, women and youth, to take advantage of this new market. Why? As you know, unfortunately, MSMEs, women and youth, have not been closely associated to the negotiations. If you ask, for instance, a lady who is living in Abidjan, selling her attiqué in Abidjan and also in Ouagadougou, what the AFCFTA means for her, I'm not sure she's going to be able to answer. While this AFCFTA is a trade agreement, it's also a development tool. It's a tool which is supposed to help MSMEs, but women and youth, to get market opportunities, to increase their turnover, and to be able also to create jobs in Africa, to get a future in Africa. So we do believe that it's very important to have those women, especially the young entrepreneurs, to be aware of this AFCFTA? What does it mean in terms of market? What are they going to get out of this big continental market? And what will be also the challenges they will be facing in order to access this market?
Thank you very much for that contribution. I want to go to Sharif now, and if you can just give us your thoughts on this. According to the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, women's businesses face a $42 billion funding shortfall. I'm sure many of us are not surprised to hear that, but the big question is, how do we fix that? And given your portfolio at the Central Bank of Egypt, I would really like to hear your perspective on this.
Okay, thank you, Reali, for the question, and thanks for the people who are attending. And I want to welcome my colleague in the panel. You are right. There is a big problem regarding financing women. But let's take a step back. Is we are talking about financing women or for the country or for our GDP? We have to put such objective as a part from our GDP gross. We are not doing this for social responsibilities. This is not only. If we take it from the perspective, it's a win-win situation, and the country will benefit from formalize the women business. I think the action will be totally different for all African countries. We are not making something only to say that we are closing the gender gap, but we are doing something very important to grow our GDP as a country. This first, we have to put it as a principle to ensure that we are taking a real action. Sure. This is from my point of view, first. Secondly, if the whole world talking about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goal, the fifth goal is mainly talking about the gender equality and affecting other three goals, which is the first one, no poverty, talking about the education, the eighth one, education, and the fourth, quality education. But how to tackle this? First of all, we have to understand where we stand, and this is a problem. We are talking about the problem, meanwhile we don't know where we stand. So first, we have to know where we stand. By the supply side, to have a proper database on the supply side, to understand where we are standing now, and to do our analysis and our researches on the demand side, and to start to compare where is the needs, what is the barriers, where is the gap, to quantify the gap, and accordingly we will know our challenges. And I will state very quickly some of our challenges that we already discovered from such analysis. First, access to finance. And when we are talking access to finance, there's a lot of aspects under the access of finance. Interest rate, unfortunately, we found some of the countries, as I was talking with my colleague Aisha, is lending with more than 40%. Okay, the lending rate is more than 40%. Second barrier on the access of finance is documentation. A hell of documentation is required from people to allow them to go for access to finance. Procedures. One of the main points for such challenge is the countries put it a credit guarantee to simplify the decision of banks to lend this segment. This is very important, and it's a responsibility on the countryside. This is access to finance, one of the main challenges to close this gap. Secondly, accessibility, the access points. When we are talking that you said 42 billion, Wally, yes?
Yeah.
Most of the untapped or the excluded from the financial inclusion people, women and man, is in the rural area. What is the coverage for banks and non-banks institutions? It's very low in all Africa. Most of banks and financial inclusions, they are focusing on the capitals. Capital 1 and Capital 2. And if you are optimistic, you will say that 50% in Capital 1 and Capital 2 and 50% distributed all over the other country, if you are optimistic. Some countries, you are talking about 80-20. 80 in 2 governorate and 20 in... We have to reach these people. We have to go for these people. Not only by banks, but there is a lot of tools. Digitalization, POS, QR codes, ATMs, the non-banking institution, like the NBFIs, like the microfinance institution, very important to build on all of this to reach our people. We have to go for them. They will not come to you. Why? Because they are feared. They are scared to go to bank for a lot of reasons. The barrier is there. Taxation. They don't know what is the benefit to go for you, so you have to go for them, okay? Third, products. We should have a tailor-made product for this segment on terms of, for financial inclusion and specifically for ladies. And if you are talking for youth, and specifically for youth, the need of each segment is different. We can go for one product fit all, will not fly. We should understand the need of these segments and to deliver their need on a proper way with the proper product. Fourth, capacity building. And capacity building, I'm not talking only a capacity building on the organizational side. No, on organizational side and on the customer side. We have to learn our customer, ladies, how they will benefit from dealing with banks. Okay? How this will affect their proper life. Ongoing. They have to understand that this is not related to taxes and government. We have to give them the confidence to deal with bank because the main barrier for financial inclusion is the confidence and trust. And at the same time, if we are talking about not only the banks to reach people, we have to depend on NBFIs, microfinance, other institutions. We have to build the capacity on this institution about the product, about the segment need, about the accessibility, about services, because unfortunately there's some countries, they are going for the non-bankable institution, telling them, please allow us in the, support us in the financial inclusion. But they don't know what is the meaning even of financial inclusion, unfortunately. But this is very important to build the capacity. The last, but not least, I think it's very important to depend on the partnership. Very important for financial inclusion and for women. What I mean with partnership is with private sector, with public sector, and with international bodies. And if we are talking financial inclusion and ladies, public sector, National Council of Women's, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Industrial, Ministry of Agriculture, all ministries related to the financial inclusion. When we are talking about the international bodies, and I think we have a good experience here in Egypt, World Food Program, World Bank, IFC, EBRD, all of these institutions, they have the willing, but you have to lead them or direct them how to serve their willing to your need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, you've clearly pointed out some of the things that need to be done. And the great thing about the Afreximbank is that in the context of the African Common Free Trade Area, there's no argument that that is the institution that is really at the core of driving its execution. So let's hear from the Afreximbank. And if I can hear from you, Roti, on this point. The Afreximbank has been doing some incredible programs relating to these themes. What have been the early learnings in terms of how effective financial institutions like yours can be in driving this? And then also link that conversation to the execution of the AFCFTA itself. as you are addressing issues relating to the youth, the women, entrepreneurship in general, how are we making progress with the AFCFTA?
So thank you very much, Wale, and good afternoon to my co-panelists and to the audience. It's a pleasure to be on this panel with you all. Yes, as you rightly mentioned, Afreximbank has been very involved in supporting SMEs with a particular focus on women-led businesses. We've also been very active in the implementation of the AFCFTA. What my fellow panelists mentioned as some of the problems and issues that we have with regards to, financial inclusion for women, that cuts across prevalence of women businesses in informal sector, lack of support structure for women businesses, cultural norms that, hinder women from, participating in business, lack of or weak management skills and capacity building support. The bank had created an export SME development program. And that program has a three-pronged approach. A first approach is financing, where the bank identifies bespoke SME finance intermediaries to lend to be able to support women and youth-led businesses across this continent. The second is capacity building support. And under this, the bank has created an incubation program and also a training program to support women-led business. The third is advocacy, because the bank realizes that you also need to be able to speak this talk with our member countries. Throwing money at the problem is not the only solution. Training or capacity building will not get us to where we want to get to, but also ensuring that governments are able to put in place policies that will support women-led businesses is key. For example, majority of women-led businesses are informal. And, a report by McKinsey states that about 74% of women-led businesses across the continent currently exist in the informal state. But what we have been able to do is to engage our member countries to see how we can continue to advocate for the easing up of business registrations across these countries to be able to support women-led business. And also, how can you incentivize these women-led businesses to register? Do we give them some tax breaks to be able to encourage them? We've been engaging in most of these discussions. We've been working keenly with the AFCFTA Secretariat to see how we can galvanize our member countries to be able to support women-led business. And apart from this, we've also focused a lot on capacity building, because we believe that, if women have understanding about the financial sector and how they can even go about accessing financing, we would really solve this problem. And what have we done? We've engaged in a lot of capacity building programs. We've identified some key sectors that we know predominantly are women-led. I'm talking of the creatives, the fashion, the singing, the music industry. We've played very active role in this section. We've collaborated with fellow DFIs to put in place capacity building programs like the Fashionomics program, like the Cook Africa program. The Cook Africa program focused on identifying young women songwriters across the continent and projecting them and supporting them. We've also supported market access, because it's not enough to just start these women-led businesses. It's also key that we get them out there. And the bank has been supporting African-led women businesses within the creatives to showcase their products at the Portugal Fashion Week. And the bank has done this 2 years in a row, 4 consecutive times, because this Fashion Week holds twice annually. And what have we tried to do? To project African creatives to international markets, to enable them, get access to contracts with international businesses and to open up the access to finance for them. So these are some of the things we've done as an institution, and we'll continue to do so. And we've partnered very strongly with the AFCFTA Secretariat. Our key partnership with the AFCFTA Secretariat focuses on the facilitation bit, on how we can work together to continue to engage with our member countries, because we believe that putting in place policies that would boost or foster women-led businesses is key. And one of the key focus we've been working on is how do you ease the registration of businesses? How do we bring women-led businesses into the formal sector? Because the more we can do this, the easier it will be to crack that issue of access to finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, I think they deserve a round of applause for the support that they've been providing, especially for women-led businesses. And before I want to come to the audience early, because I often say that these events are not about the moderator or the speakers, they're about the audience. So you probably have some perspective on this theme, and you may want to even direct or redirect the conversation. So I would be coming to you shortly. But before that, Claire, I want you to perhaps speak to policies, because she mentioned policies to a large extent when she just spoke now. She talked about, the magic of just simply moving a business from being informal to formal. Policies can drive that. She talked about market access. And in your view, as we try to move forward this conversation about closing the gender gap, especially for a big focus on women and, of course, the youth, I want to hear your thoughts on the type of policies that you think policymakers on the national and continental level need to focus on right now.
Yes. Thank you, Wale. Before I answer your question, good afternoon to everyone. I would like to thank the Afreximbank for holding this, all the way from the president to the staffs here. So to answer your question, the kind of policies, when you talk about policies and we relate that to the funding, right, the $42 billion funding, one thing that can rectify that from a holistic point of view is incentives, promoting incentives like line of credit, incentives like equity investments, incentives like trade finance. In addition to these incentives is also the promotion of the AFAWA's Guarantee for Growth bank-wide initiative. Some of you might know this, but for some that don't, its sole aim is basically to unlock about $5 billion of funds towards women in business. This unlocking of these funds is going to address a lot of challenges. It's going to address challenges like, introducing a rating system for the African Development Bank Group to, increase their lending share to the women. So these sort of challenges are what looking into. Another challenge that the AFAWA initiative is going to introduce is the lowering or relaxation of the collaterals, or rather the requirements relate that is going to affect women in business. Collateral, lowering.
Sorry, I think I have an advantage over you all. My mic is on this side.
I wish my mic was longer. I'm sorry, guys.
I wish. So I guess those that set this up should note that. But go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, also introducing subsidized training, business finance training that will help these women in business, especially those in startups, small businesses. They might not have most of these women, especially those that are transitioning from the informal sector to this formal sector. They might not have the, the training necessary enough to grow or sustain their business. So this AFAWA initiative, this bank-wide initiative, is going to definitely address that. And I think all of these is good. It will be a good start to rectify the funding issue.
Of course, thank you very much for that. Of course, there are so many issues, and incentives are a big part of helping us close that gap. So let's go to the audience a little early, and then perhaps I come round again to the panelists. But if you are in the audience and you want to chime in and perhaps ask a particular question, or there's an issue relating to this theme that you would like us to touch.
Can I add something in this question?
Oh, sure. Please.
Please.
Go ahead.
Incentive.
All right. So I guess he is emphasizing the point.
Incentive.
It's very important
to
add incentive. Incentive in a lot of areas. We mentioned some of it, but we have to be creative and to exert some effort to see how we can incentivize this segment to be with us in the formal sector.
Yeah.
Right.
We have to exert some effort on this. Taxes, interest rate, a lot of areas. Trade, as you said, but what else?
We hear you. So do we have any questions or comments at this time? Yes, please please introduce yourself and then ask your question or make your comment. We switch on the camera,
Yeah, I just
microphone.
switched it. Yeah, I am Dr. Asfour, President for the Africa Business Council, but for my other hand, President for the African Alliance for Women Empowerment, and many other hats. So thank you very much for the panelists. Gender inducer, my passionate. We all know that the African Union financial inclusion decade started 2020 till 2030. So I think this is a very important for us, financial inclusion, because all our African leaders are leading this. So we need to really popularize it, and especially with the central banks, because what we're trying to do also to advocate for the simple digital payment solutions, which is how the central banks with the telecommunication companies, with the regulatory frameworks, make sure that our women traders can trade with each other with their mobiles. We have M-Pesa in Kenya, but of course, if we can have it across border with interoperability will be great. So this is actually very important for central banks to take it forward. On another level, the government procurement, because we're talking about policy, I mean, our strategy is 3 pillars. First is personal empowerment programs for women that will include awareness, capacity building, education. The second is policy advocacy. Third is product development. With policy advocacy, what we are advocating for is at least 30% for all government procurement goes to SMEs, women, and youth. And I have really advocated for that when I was COMESA Business Council Chair. Kenya implemented it. That's why the day before yesterday, I was in Kenya. We were giving His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta an Africa Gender Award because he really pushed the government procurement. So this is one thing also as a policy that we are really looking forward how to do. The third pillar with product development, I think all of us agree that we need to have business incubators, business development centers, technology hub to link science technology with raw materials to have an end product. So our women on the ground should be able to roast the macadamia and package it and send it instead of getting it to Vietnam and roast it and then getting it. All our gemstones, they don't have, from the small scale miners women, they don't have to go to Jaipur, India to be cut and polished and then brought to us. Or the diamond or the tanzanite, many things. So product development, branding, designing, packaging, it's our role. So I think it's a partnership with the governments, with the civil society, with the business organizations, with the private sector, and I believe ITC, central banks, all of you are doing great, but as Business Council, we really want to see how we can join efforts in order to have the real Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which women can trade among ourselves with made in Africa product that is competitive, quality, value added, and standardized. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that contribution, and I think she hits some very important points. We have to be deliberate with some of these things. So the point about business incubators, I think, is so important. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And it's always great to hear real examples. So what you mentioned about what's going on in Kenya, I think encourages us to let us know what is possible. So thank you so much for that. We have another question or comment, please.
Good afternoon, Garrett Webster. My company is Africa Accessible. I have the privilege of being Jamaican, growing up in the U.S., and then now living in Africa. So I have different perspectives with regards to the diaspora. In the U.S., in some areas, African Americans, African women are the largest growing segment as far as entrepreneurs. In Jamaica, we have women entrepreneurs that are doing amazing things. What efforts are being made to connect women across the diaspora who have faced different challenges but are now, thriving with women who are at a different point in the journey so that they can share that knowledge? Women from Atlanta and Addis and,
sure,
Kingston, and so that you see a lot of the same challenges in different contexts. They're doing the same thing in Jamaica. They're doing the same thing in, other places. What are the efforts as far as connecting these women to help them to, build within each other, because the power is in the partnerships.
Great point as well. Thank you so much for that. I wonder if anyone on the panel would like to speak to that point. Perhaps the Afreximbank.
Yes, I want to take a first stab at that. Thank you. So I mentioned to you that we have developed an incubation program. And within the incubation program, we are looking keenly at mentorship. So what we're trying to do is to be able to link, on upcoming women-led businesses to mentors who have been able to thrive and succeed within their sectors. We've done this successfully for, youth-led businesses where we have identified what we call intra-African champions within our intra-African trade initiative, and we've been able to link them to small and upcoming youth-led SMEs. So we are trying to replicate the same mentorship program into our incubation program for SMEs, but with a focus on women, where you try to link successful women-led entrepreneurs with upcoming ones across various sectors. We've started that with the creative sector. We've started that with the fashion and creative and songwriting, but we want to be able to move it to other sectors where we link successful businesses with upcoming businesses. They share their experience on how they've been able to break through, how they've been able to, access markets, and also they now even take them on board and try to link them, to the international markets and try to mentor some of these young entrepreneurs. So it's something we've done across the other sectors I've mentioned, and which we will try to replicate also with a particular focus on other women-led businesses in different sectors on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Onroti. And obviously, you want to connect with her to hear more about what they're doing. Yeah. And thanks for bringing up the point. I think Dr. Mani wants to say something about this. But before we go to you, maybe we can have another contribution from the... Okay, let's go. Yes, let's go to her first, and then we'll hear from the central bank.
Okay, I just want to mention that 1, 2, 3 September, there is going to be the Afro-Caribbean Business Forum, and we will have a high-level panel on women business linkages. It will be held in Barbados. We're inviting women from Jamaica, Barbados, St. Kitts, Trinidad, Tobago, all the Caribbean. So that's how we really link together. Thank you. And I think maybe you would like to say more about it.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to say also that at ITC we have our She Trades program, which is about women economic empowerment, and we have been also promoting, the dissemination of best practices between, African women, Caribbean women, Asian women, because we do believe that it's very important for African women also to see a little bit what others are doing in specific sectors. We have spoken about, Oloranti was speaking about the textile industry, for instance, and we have been promoting the share of best practices between some women in Asia, for instance, in Mongolia, and the women from Zambia and the ones from West Africa, the ones that are producing and exporting also textile product. So this is something that we are doing under our She Trades program, and we do have also another chapter on government procurement, working with policymakers in order to make sure that, there is a good, how can I say, policy promoting the empowerment of women to access government procurement market, because this is also another sector which is important. Having said that, I don't know if I may continue since I have the floor quickly.
I think you wanted to say something as well, Sherry?
I want to reply, but before you continue, Aisha, I want to reply to Ms. Asfour, but let's go regarding the central banks and what you mentioned, because what you mentioned is very important.
So do you mind speaking into the microphone so everyone can hear you?
Okay. Thank you that you raised a very important topic, which is non-financial services. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people and a lot of even countries and government, they are not focusing on the importance of non-financial service. If we are looking to include such segments from youth, from women, and the MSMEs, we have to focus on the non-financial service. And when we are talking about non-financial service, is different areas and a lot of areas. We are talking about governance, formalization, structure, marketing, HR, everything. These people, they have lack of knowledge, the MSMEs, to build the formal governance structure to deal with different institutions, not only banks. And this is the role of non-financial services. And I want to tell, if you want to know and to share with our colleagues or our friends in Africa, we have a success story in the Central Bank of Egypt regarding the non-financial services. We have an initiative launched in 2019 called Nilepreneur. Nilepreneur is focusing on startup entrepreneur MSMEs for non-financial service, including incubators, including all the incubators area. You are talking about product development, packaging, everything. Focusing on all industries, but focusing on three main industries, which is manufacturing, agriculture, and digital transformation. I will give you some numbers from this initiative. First of all, we as 31st of December 2021, we built 33 business development hub centers. Our target, now we already exceeded the 50. Our target by end of this year to exceed the 100 BDS hub. We serve 240 startups. Out of them, 116 women. 600 SMEs, out of them, approximately 250 women. 51,000 non-financial services were provided, out of them, 14,000 for women.
Right.
Capacity building was 8,000, out of them, 6,000 professionals. The 8,000 for youth and women, plus 6,000 for professionals. Non-financial service, it's very important. This Nilepreneur initiative we are doing with 4 universities, Ain Shams University, Nile University, Azhar University, and Cairo University. And our plan is to expand. The second part of how to facilitate for women to be part from the trade and from the formal economy. End of last year, 2021, Central Bank decided to launch a new account for not only women, but for all the microfinance and small business informal sector, targeting mainly the informal sector, which is called Economic Activity Account. With no document, only with ID. For example, if you are a lady standing in a kiosk, selling vegetables, doing catering, doing online shopping, you are feared from the taxes, you are feared from dealing with central bank. And on the same time, with banks. And on the same time, you can't have an access for the e-commerce, for the POSs. We already launched our regulation for all banks to open the account only with ID. Banks will not ask for any other document, commercial register, tax card, nothing. And banks to provide them digital payment methods. Don't wait, okay? We have now, I think 50% from the banks developed this product. The due date is end of June 2022, that 100% from banks should have such product.
Right. Thank you. Wow. So it's interesting to hear what's going on. And clearly a success story there. The impact of what can happen when we're intentional. Thank you so much for sharing that. Aissatou, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I think there is one important element that we have not spoken about is also having access to information about the market. Because I think when we talk about the FCFTA, we talk about market opportunities, but where to find this market and how to comply with the market requirement. So I think the starting point is getting this information, and this is why at ITC we do have a, how can I say, a range of trade and market intelligence tools that is really providing a number of information about the market destination and also about the market requirements in terms of quality, in terms of standard, in terms of, packaging. But I want to say also something about the financial.
If you can just speak into the mic again. Sorry. I know it's a bit of a challenge.
So I think the starting point, it's about information, but it's also about building a functional ecosystem. And this is why also at ITC we came up with this program, which is called One Trade Africa, a program to help increase the participation of MSMEs, women and youth under the AFCFTA, working with policymakers in order to improve this business ecosystem, which means that working with them to address the non-tariff measures, for instance, to help also MSMEs to access credit, because this is not something which is easy. We know that most of the banks are applying high interest rates, and they are also requesting a number of documents, a number of guarantees that those MSMEs have to provide in order to get access to finance, and this is still an issue. Another element that has been also, I think, pointed out is the fact that, as you know, today, and we have seen this with the COVID crisis, many MSMEs, women and youth entrepreneurs, are also going online, e-commerce, and we don't have a secure business environment for e-commerce. How to deal with this. So our program, our One Trade Africa program, is really about improving also this business ecosystem. It's also working with business support organizations such as the African Business Council, which is led by Dr. Asfour here, in order to provide this business support organization, trade promotion organization, investment promotion organization with the right product and services to empower the private sector. Right. And of course, at micro level, working with MSMEs, helping them, as I was saying, to comply with quality requirement, to go through a certification process, to work on packaging, branding. What we have noticed at ITC is that working with the formal sector in Africa, they know more how to export in Europe, more how to export in the US or in Asia than how to export in Africa. And now there is a growing middle class in Africa. People want to have good products, good quality products. So how to help those MSMEs to get the skills, the know-how, and the, how can I say, the finance that will help them to run their business, but most importantly, to sustain their business. Right. And I think this is what we are doing at ITC. We have this One Trade Africa program. We do have another program, thanks to Afreximbank, our How to Export
I was about
program.
to speak on that.
Exactly, so I will say one more. This is a program which is running right. very well. We started with 3 countries, Côte d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and Rwanda.
What is the program exactly?
How to export under the AFCFTA.
Okay, so how do people benefit from the program?
Sorry?
How do people get into that program?
Online.
Oh, it's an online training.
It's open to the whole 55 member states.
Okay.
But we work with business support organizations because there are multipliers on the ground. Right. And it's very important for them to be able to train people not only in capitals, but also people, MSMEs, and small businesses, women and youth entrepreneurs that are living in remote areas. Because if we want the AFCFTA to be, a tool for development, and if we want the AFCFTA to change the face of Africa, we need also to empower those small businesses that are located in rural areas. And this How to Export training program is, of course, you can have access to the module online, but we are also working with business support organizations at national level to run some physical workshops. So we have a number of programs, and with only one objective: to connect small businesses with market opportunities.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the insight, and no doubt you want to connect with her to hear more. Yes, I think we can put our hands together for the ITC to really appreciate what you're doing. All right, I see another hand up there. Well, before that, I want to go to Claire because we've left you out for quite a bit. And, so much has been said about market access, funding, and so forth. But what about the skills, the raw skills, if you like, that are needed to thrive in business? I want to hear your thoughts about being deliberate about that. If we take a look at our formal educational system, they tend not to necessarily give those skills to many people that we're speaking of today, including the youth. So what are your thoughts on that? How do we address that issue?
Thank you, Wale. So when we talk about skills, especially for women or youth, for them to transition from an informal sector to a formal sector, I can't help but think of education. Education, level of education, encouraging education, subsidizing this education in order to encourage these women, especially those ones in the informal sector, and also another thing about when we talk about skills is training, okay? And to dive into training, I'm speaking about, comparative advantage of each woman's skill and how they can add, and how that skill can be added to the country's economic growth. So education is not compulsory for all, because nowadays I can just go online, log into YouTube and learn a course and just go get a job. You don't have to go to school and attain up to master's or PhD degree, but we want to encourage, create incentives, subsidize education, subsidize certain courses that will add to the country's development. Right now, we are looking at IT. Technology truly is the future, right? So it is up to the government, NGOs, and businesses to create these opportunities for these women to, tap into these skills, these courses or educational needs that will give them that level up or that high end up in order for them to be their best selves. Right, and that is a win-win for all. It's not a matter of competition. It's a win-win for all. It adds to the the GDP. It adds to the Africa's economic growth. So all of this subsidization of education for those that are less privileged, subsidization of courses, tapping into certain courses that any woman can use to elevate her skills and make her more important and important enough to add to the economy of Africa is paramount. Yeah.
I know you really want to say something about this.
I do, and what I wanted to say is that I think for upskilling women, I think we need to look critically at digitalization. I think it's the best way to go, and it speaks to what my colleague from ITC has mentioned as using e-platforms to train women. That's the way we can get this upskilling that we need for women-led business to be done on an en masse basis. And what she was speaking to earlier was the fact that Afreximbank and ITC came together to create an e-academy. And that e-academy comes in to give you a lot of skills upgrades. It's open to all women across all our member countries, and they can access this digital platform to be able to upskill. I think this is one of the key things we need to push aggressively out there.
But so we better appreciate what type of skills.
So some of the skills that we are focusing on and the Online Export Academy includes the opportunity how to export within the African region. It's one of the skills we are learning, and researching African markets. You'll be amazed at the fact that Africans just manufacture things, products, and they don't even know where the demand for those products may be in the other country. So enabling them to understand the market, enabling them to understand where the demand for their products may be required is key. We also provide access market conditions. We also provide helping them to export within the countries. Like she said, it's easy for them to export from Cote d'Ivoire to France. They understand that. But how to export from Cote d'Ivoire to Nigeria, there's no clarity on that. So that academy, that online academy provides all this with the help of ITC, of course. And that's why I'm saying emphasis of upskilling should be on digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. All right, please go ahead, sir.
Greetings. My name is Amir Mohammed. Proudly, I'm working with IC as the National Coordinator of She Trades program in Egypt. We have She Trades already in Egypt. We are working with the handicraft sector, and I just want to highlight in this context that initiative is in Egypt working very well. We have selected 50 SMEs among 180 applicants, and we already worked with them. About 35 of them are active and working and taking all the interventions we are delivering. And I believe such initiative and such initiatives can collaborate not only inside the country, but I see a room for potential to collaborate on the region. For example, I'm talking about handicrafts happening in Egypt. I'm sure there are other women She Trades initiatives that can integrate with our designers and manufacturers. And there is opportunity to collaborate in this regard. For example, like they can source raw material for new designs and new products from African countries, and vice versa. Other entrepreneurs in other African countries, women entrepreneurs in She Trades, they can connect with our group. So I would love to talk with you to elaborate this kind of regional collaboration and integration. And also I invite any other initiatives or programs to collaborate with our group of entrepreneurs, because we are about to finish the running project by October, and we already have a solid result with a group of SMEs who have already achieved good progress in understanding business, and we have delivered the non-financial services in different matters such as marketing, export and logistics, design, and so on. So they are working now together as one group. They are moving as one group. So I believe there is a good achievement happening in Egypt in this direction. So I just want to highlight in this context. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that. So more testimonies of progress. And I know this may sound a bit abrupt, but we really have to wrap this up now. I do understand that some other sessions started way before us, and there is still one more session in the Teatro hall that we all need to get to. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much to my panelists. If you can please put your hands together for them. I would say, though, that as they step off the stage, please do your best to connect with them. I think a lot of useful information has been shared, especially with respect to what the ITC and the Afreximbank are doing. I really like the question you asked the gentleman from the US, and it really brings together the opportunity to collaborate. And as we share information, I think we continue to chip away at this, and we'll continue to close that gender gap, but it has to be a deliberate effort, and I think we will be successful at this. So thank you so much for being part of this, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.